Regardless of whether you live in an urban context or near a wooded area, fire is a frequently occurring hazard which will negatively affect your life, whether it occurs in your kitchen or moves across the landscape. Drought and land management are both drivers of fire risk, so even if wildfires have not yet occurred in your region, changing conditions may make them more likely over the following years. Identifying and mitigating fire risks in your home and across your property involves working with structures and materials, plantings, and your own behaviour. Now, as with all of the advice we're sharing here, there's no guarantee that your property will be immune from a fire. Increasingly, we are seeing bioregional scale disasters with fires that overwhelm all but barren fortress-style properties. However, taking this guidance on board can help you start your research to develop a solution that is suitable for your property, the members of your household, and an intended quality of life. Now, there's a heavy semi-rural focus to this text and an understanding that comes from Mediterranean subtropical climates. I'd love to update this with more urban-focused and climate-specific species information. So please share your feedback and ideas with me. Now, we'll discuss fire risk reduction by working out in zones with a focus on actively protecting the home, structures and livestock, and using more passive responses such as planting fire breaks in the outer zone. Most sites should have one major fire sector. Here it's over this direction to the national park, and it should be carefully considered because of its exposure to hot, dry winds or heavily forested areas. But fire can come from any direction, and this should be incorporated into your design. It is also too important to remember that embers from fires can be picked up and set buildings alight, even if the property is out of a direct fire path. Now, your local fire department should be able to help you develop a fire plan, and they may recommend that you either evacuate or stay and fight at your own risk. This decision is up to you and your family and should take your health into account, as well as local fire conditions, as well as the risk to property and person. My recommendation is to err on the side of safety and to pay attention to news updates and evacuate sooner rather than later. Now, Zone 0 is your immediate home structure. If you have the opportunity to build a new house, this is a great time to incorporate fire design in both the siting and construction of your home and other buildings. Depending on your location, fire risk and budget, you may also want to think about identifying a fire shelter, an easily located windowless underground or whitewashed earthen building clear of a house and trees with the entrance away from the fire sector. Now, fire moves most quickly up a forested hill, and ridgelines are usually very vulnerable to fire. If possible, siting your home on the key point so that a wooded hillside is behind it and water or leafy green plantings below will reduce your exposure. Stone, bricks, clay or lime rendered surfaces will have a stronger resilience to fire than exposed wood, so a well-rendered straw bale home will be more resilient to flames than one clad in a fast-burning timber. There are fire-retardant timbers, but check out what species are most local to you and available from sustainable forestry sources. There is also evidence that dug-in earthship-style structures can provide a lot of protection. If this is possible in the area where you live, it is a great option to consider. Now, a tin roof will be able to handle embers better than wood shingles, but make sure that gaps for ventilation, etc. are protected by metal mesh screens which will resist embers. Identifying ways to improve the fire resilience of your home is something that can be incorporated into a retrofit. Windows are very vulnerable in a fire, so shielding the glass with metal fly screens or fire shutters of metal or fire-resistant wood will help to protect them. I've included a link to the Australian building advice from extreme bushfire zones. This is worthwhile reading if you're planning to build or renovate. Now, the Zone 1 higher water needs than other zones means that the area around your home will generally be wetter and more easily protected with the use of irrigation, ponds and rainwater tanks. Wet structures like these act as both a shield and can be used to water down garden beds in the building in the event of a fire. Higher water use plantings of leafy green vegetables and green mulches or ground covers such as sweet potato or pumpkins also help to keep moisture in the soil. In a fire event, wetting the mulch in garden beds will make it harder for fires to spread into the Zone 1 area. You should also fill all gutters, basins, baths and sinks with water and have hoses available inside the house to siphon water outside. Now, maintaining cleared or low fuel pathways around the house and alongside driveways reduces the likelihood of burning debris falling and hitting buildings or blocking access and escape routes. This design of immediate fences and barriers around your residence is also something to consider. A combustible material such as timber, bamboo or brushwood may catch on fire and then light a window and let fire inside the house. Now, the need to protect the house itself can also determine how we place our planting, and a good rule of thumb is that plants should be a minimum of 3 times their mature height away from the building, with a pathway of 1 metre maintained around at all times. That is, 1 metre around the building. Now, local observations of plants that resist or recover from fire should guide your planting decisions. However, there are general guidelines to follow. Plants such as figs, willows, mulberries, bananas, some acacias and monsteras are all fire retardant, and while they may be damaged in a serious fire, their foliage can help hinder a fire's path. Lower growing ground covers and climbers such as comfrey, ivy, passionfruit, taro and aloe, agave or pigface will all act as wetter plantings to slow fires down. These type of plants can be used to hinder fire throughout the property, not just in Zone 1. Now, your Zone 1 veg beds, crop grass such as lawns, aquaponics features, ponds, natural swimming pools, gravel or paved parking areas and rainwater tanks are all low-risk features to place around the Zone 1 area. Incorporating a grey water system to water these areas or reed bed management will also allow recycled water to be part of the fire management design. Metal or concrete rainwater tanks will obviously perform better than those made of plastic. And in fire conditions, be warned, electricity companies may shut off power and solar panels will be obscured by smoke. So maintaining water supply in a fire will mean incorporating a header tank for gravity-fed water or relying on a generator or a pump. And if your gas supply is in tanks or you have fuel sited on the property, this should be sited away from the most likely fire sector and away from the main building. Now, unlike many other hazards where you just have to wait for water to stop flowing or the wind to calm down, smaller fires can be extinguished. So part of your preparations should include siting fire buckets of sand or extinguishers in areas such as kitchens or workshops. Spot fires on smaller properties can be also managed through the use of a fire trailer holding a 1,000-litre tank and a small fuel or battery run pump. Now, this equipment is also useful to move water to stock troughs or for initial plantings. Now, keeping equipment such as this maintained, accessible and ready to use and filled with both water and fuel is essential. Now, identify ways that you'll be able to evacuate your home and local area if it is under threat, and ensure that driveways are kept clear of debris and overhanging branches. Many regional shires and local governments require that fire breaks are free of flammable material and kept along property lines and around homes. Incorporating these into your property design allows you to make use of them for access and water collection. Now, of course, a fire may happen when you are not at home, or that fire crews may come to protect your home once you are evacuated. Making a fire plan post box at your entry gate is a way to support fire crews. Now, this could include maps of your property, including access paths, fire breaks, dams and tanks where fire crews could refill, along with contact details for property owners. Now, you may have chosen to keep animals in your Zone 2, and make sure to consider fire when you design their enclosures so that they are of suitable materials and well located. Placing the exits away from the fire sector and designing paths will enable animals to be freed and run away from an oncoming fire. You should also consider a written plan for how to keep your livestock safe and make sure they have adequate water. Zones 3 and outwards should be managed to have minimal fuel accumulated, unlike here, and wetter leaves, which are better. Rather than fuel, it may be better to think of this as accumulated dry biomass, and to consider how human labour or animals such as goats can help to reduce the build-up of this. A well-managed orchard or food forest can also act to protect a property from a fire, and your windbreaks should also be designed to be both fire resilient and fire shielding, and to not provide a pathway for fire to travel along. Now, the longer growing trees in Zone 4 also need to be managed for protection, as they are a long-term investment and many fire threats could come through before harvest. This can be done through tree spacing, management of lower branches, the removal of dry matter, and the use of grazing and foraging animals underneath. Species choice for fire resilience is also important. Plants such as oaks and nut trees are more resilient to fire, but eucalyptus species may regenerate quickly and provide timber harvests after a fire event. But you should consider fire protection at appropriate levels for all zones of your property. So consider protection and needs supply such as water for all of these. Anyway, good luck with incorporating fire management into your property design. It is something that we need to take into account, but make sure you balance it with the needs that you have to have a wonderful and abundant lifestyle rather than living in a fortress. Thank you.